guys doing? My name is Hector Macias. I'm a mechanical designer here at ASEI Engineering, and today I'm going to go ahead and talk to you guys about domestic water piping and plan design. So when you're talking about domestic water piping and plan design, you want to go ahead and take a couple things into account. I'm going to go ahead and jump right into it, so go ahead and pause the video if you ever need to catch up or anything like that. Feel free to, and then we'll just move right along. I'm going to be talking about a couple of things today. So one of the things that we're going to talk about is determining your design requirements. Then we're going to talk about scheduling your equipment, and then cold and hot water distribution, as well as water line sizing. So the first thing that I want to talk to you guys about is to determine your design requirements. So before you even jump into CAD, you want to go ahead and have a couple of things laid out for your job. So when you're determining your requirements, you need to talk to first your architect. You have an architect that you're working hand in hand with each and every job. So you want to go ahead and ask these questions beforehand, whether it be in the meeting that you have with them as a kickoff, or just an initial questions that you send them. You want to go ahead and ask if there's any specific requirements that the owner or the architect themselves have for you, either if it's fixtures, specific fixtures, or a specific design requirements that they need you to have for the job. The reason that we do this is because we want to go ahead and have all this information beforehand so that you don't have to redo your work later. You also, before you even jump into CAD as well, you want to go ahead and verify if there's any specific requirements that the local jurisdiction is asking for you. Depending on where you're designing your job, there is different requirements that you need to go ahead and put into your job. So you want to go ahead and figure that out before you even start the design process. Alright guys, so we're going to go ahead and jump into the next point, which would be scheduling equipment. So what you want to do is you want to go ahead and look at your job, see if there's any specific equipment that the architect is showing on their schedule as well, like we talked about earlier. You want to go ahead and verify with them if there is any specific equipment. So right now you're just making sure that it's in the correct locations, anything like that. Make sure that the architect gives you the equipment locations that you need. So for example, here we jump in, we know that this is a mop sink, and we see a circle here above it, so that usually means that they want a water heater above the mop sink. So we can see that we're going to need a water heater here. And also over here, if you jump into the truck dock, you can see that they have a grate over here. So that's going to mean that we're going to need a pump for this. So you want to go ahead and go through the job. I know specifically these are the two pieces of equipment that we're going to need for this specific job. So I'm going to go ahead and just jump into it, but you want to usually just go through your whole design. If you do see any boxes or squares that you don't know what they are, they're not tagged, you want to go ahead and ask the architect. Make sure that you know exactly what you need to schedule before you actually schedule it. So like I said, here we have our mop sink, and right above it we have our water heater. So I'm going to go ahead and just darken this circle here, just so that we can better see it for our equipment. And then here as well, I'm going to go ahead and draw a box around it. Sometimes you want to go ahead and do just hatches just so that they can see it better. And then here as well. So you want to make sure that these are all fixtures that you need to do. So this is your toilets, this is your urinals, drinking fountains, lab, all of that information should be filled out. So you want to go ahead and bring it in and pull it in so that you can have all that ready for when you want to go into schedule. So I have all my stuff routed and ready to go here on the side for you guys, just to save a little bit of time. So I'm going to go ahead and just grab all the tags for all our specific equipment. Mop sink. All right, so I have all that, so I'm just going to copy that over into our job. So I have all those tagged and ready to go for you guys. So once you have this on your job, on your specific plan, so you want to go ahead and schedule the equipment that we're gonna need. So we know that we need a mop sink. I'm sorry, and you know that we need a water heater, and you know that we need a pump. So as we know this, we're gonna go ahead and bring in our tags. You want to just show this and fill this out correctly. So I already know this water heater we show, usually it's WH1. If you have multiple water heaters, you're going to go ahead and do that simultaneously. So just do 1, 2, and so on and so forth. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this one over. For our pump, just do P. So the reason that I tagged our equipment here on our plan is because these tags are going to refer back to our schedules. So you want to make sure that the schedules and your tags are exactly the same. So right here we have WH1, and then we have P1 for the pump. So if I go into my schedules, I've already previously pulled these in for you guys so that we can just save a little bit of time. But as you can see here, we have WH1 for our water heater, and then we have P1 for our pump. So make sure that these tags match up, because when the either the your designer or whether your engineer or your contractor, whoever's looking at these plans afterwards, they're going to go ahead and look at these tags, because they're going to know what are they showing on their schedule and where are they showing it on the plan. So you want to make sure that you have these correct and they're matching, so that you can have that information for them. As you can see, before you even fill all this information out, you need to figure out exactly what you need. So we already know for this specific job that we need a 30-gallon water heater. So we went ahead and we pulled in a Dell 30 A.O. Smith. So we know this information, and all this information is previously filled out. So I'm going to show you where I got that from. So you want to go into your plumbing and then schedules, water heater schedules, and you pull this down. You're going to see that we have these pull downs with already water heaters scheduled for you guys. You just grab and go easily for you guys. Here you can see that our Dell 30 is right here. We do have notes on the drop downs. These are for you as a designer, so that you can go ahead and look at these, make sure that you have these schedules filled out correctly. So a lot of things, a common error that we usually do is we don't fill these schedules out correctly, and then we have mistakes in the job, anything like that. So you want to go ahead and make sure that these are filled out correctly. So you can see here what we're talking about is that we have elements. So we have 2 elements. So for our specific water heater, our Dell 30, we have 4.5 kW input, but there's 2 elements on there. So you want to go ahead and specify here on the remarks whether it's going to be simultaneously run or non-simultaneous operation. As you can see, we have a note here that tells you to do this. So if you want to just go ahead and go through the actual schedules themselves, they do a good job of just teaching you what you need to fill out, what you need to show exactly on your schedule. So here I already previously filled it out for us. It's non-simultaneous, 4.5 kW, 2 elements. So you also wanted to go ahead and fill this out, but you also want to coordinate with your electrical counterpart. So you want to go ahead and work with your electrical guy and just kind of talk to them and go back and forth. So here we can see that we have electrical information. So we have the voltage and we have the phase. So you want to go ahead and go back with them. Right now we're showing a 208 single phase, but we want to coordinate with them, make sure that that's correct. Sometimes they have restrictions with their equipment or anything like that. They may need you to schedule something in a different voltage or phase. You want to go ahead and ask them and just see what they need. So you can see right here that we also have these available in 277 and 480 volts. So you want to go ahead and ask them, make sure, and then same with the pump. See, we have our electrical information here. We got 208 single phase. We have all that information ready to go. Since we are working hand in hand with our electrical counterpart, you want to make sure you have these filled out. Anything that has electrical requirements, you want to make sure that those are filled out before you even jump into any of the rest of the design, just so that it can make it easier for both of us to just kind of move along together with this job, because they're going to need your information as well. So you can see here, we also have our plumbing fixture schedule. So we have our water closets, ADA water closets. We have all this information filled out. I'm pulling this in just as well as I did with the water heater. You're going to go ahead and pull down the plumbing fixture schedule, and you're just going to pick the ones that you need, whether or not the architect gave you a specific fixtures that he wants you to use. You're going to go ahead and put that in here. So I went ahead and I pulled all these in already for us. Before you move on to the actual design though, you want to make sure that you fill all the schedules out. So here you can see that we have sizing for our cold water lines. These come in at different sizes. So here I already filled them out for us, but we want to make sure that we have the correct sizes shown on our schedule, because this is what we're going to show on our plan as well. So as right here, since we do have a flush valve water closet, we're going to need a 1.5 inch cold water line. So how do I know this? So we go ahead and go back to our pipe sizing chart on our previously filled out water calculation, and we have our pipe sizing chart here. You have to keep in mind though, if you are sizing equipment, you have to make sure it's either tank or valve. You have to figure out what it is first, because that's going to determine what column you use to size your equipment. So right here, we know we're going to need valve. We have flush valve toilets. So we're going to go ahead and go down 10 fixture units would be a 1.5 inch cold water line. So right here, I have my water closets shown. I know that they're 10 fixture units, so that works for me. So I go back and I fill this out and make sure it's a 1.5 inch cold water line throughout. And you want to go ahead and do that with hot water as well. If there's any labs or anything like that need it, you want to go ahead and go back and forth and size all these before you actually jump into the job. Right? So that's your schedule right there. You jump back into the plan, just make sure. So we have our water heater, we have our pump, and then we have all our fixtures here. All right, and that counts right there. All right, guys, so we're gonna go ahead and jump into the next step, which would be cold water and hot water distribution. I already ran these for us just to save a little bit of time for us. So I'm just gonna go ahead and pull these in, and I'll go over what exactly I did. We can just go over it. So when you're running your water lines, you want to make sure that before you run individual lines, you don't want to just run a line into every single thing. So you want to go ahead and run your main water distribution. So here you can see your cold water. So I went ahead and I ran my cold water and I ran it down, and I just kind of put it through all of our groups where we're going to need them, where we know we're going to need them, and just kind of ran it all the way to my last fixture. So here's my hose bib. I have my last fixture on there. You just want to go ahead and route a line. So from wherever it's coming into the building, you have to make sure that you coordinate that as well with your architect. They have to send you civil information and let you know where it's coming into the building. So once you know that, you show that the water's coming into the building, you just run your main water valve, main water line all the way to your last fixture. You want to go ahead and do the same thing with your hot water line. This is going to come from your water heater though, so you just want to run a line all the way to the last fixture, which would be the sink over here and these labs over here. So those are your last fixtures. You just want to run your main line all the way to where it needs to be. When you're coming through, you need to run individual lines now to your actual fixtures. So here we have a group of labs. So we have cold water and hot water. So these lines are individually ran specifically to this fixture. Since they are on the same wall, you can go ahead and put them in the same drop, and you're going to go ahead and with the keynote later, you're going to specify exactly what these drops are doing, and you're going to show that they're serving both of these labs. So what I want to show you guys is where I got my plumbing symbols. So if you want to just type in PS and enter, it's going to pull out your plumbing symbols. And you can see here I have my riser, my drops, just any symbols that we might need throughout the job are all going to be here. So you want to just take a look at it, and then you just grab it and pull it in. So this is where you can see that I have my drops. So I already have these shown previously for us to just kind of look at and have these ready to go. When you run these individually, you want to make sure that you're not overcrowding your plan. Since we do have, for example, this job itself is in a 3/32 scale, so the text and all the lines are coming in pretty big. So you want to just minimize it as much as you can. If you have a smaller scale, you can go ahead and show more lines or more drops if you want. It'd make it a lot easier. But since this one we have a large scale, we just show something very specific, very simple, for them to be able to just look at, and it won't look as cluttered, and we'll be able to kind of go through it and just read through it. So once you run the independent lines, you can run them down as a header. So for example, this line, as you can see, we only have one line coming down for this group of water closets and urinals. So what I'm going to do is later on with the keynote, I'm just going to go ahead and specify that this line is going to go down to a header. So that header is then going to feed every single fixture in this wall, including the drinking fountain. So you can do that when you have anything that's on one specific wall. That's usually the way that we like to do it, just to minimize the amount of stuff that you're putting on the job, and it makes it very clean and very good to look at. You want to go ahead and provide shutoff valves for wherever you need. Here, what we're going to do on the riser, we're going to provide a shutoff valve for this riser here in the riser. So once we do that, run it out. I'm going to go ahead and specify that with our keynotes as well. So if you do need to show it, for example, this water line goes directly to our group of bathrooms, so we might want to just show a shutoff valve for this size right here. So I'll show you, I'll pull it in. So here's our shutoff valve symbol, and I just want to put it on our water line and just show it. I want to do the same thing with my hot water. And there you go. So I'm going to clean it up a little bit for you guys. So the location for our shutoff valves, you want to make sure that they're accessible. So right here, we're going to have to provide an actual box for them to access these shutoff valves in the ceiling. This is maybe not the best way that you want to do it. You want to just provide, if there's a lay-in ceiling or anything like that, you want to show that there. Since here we're kind of limited with our space and where we can actually put them, I'm going to have to put them here. And just make sure that you note that you're going to need to provide an access for these shutoff valves, anything like that. This just helps if you need to shut off the water for the bathrooms. You don't need to shut off the main water line. You can just shut off the valves for the bathrooms. So I'm going to go ahead and move on. Talk a little bit more about hot water. So when you're running your hot water line, you want to do the same thing as you did with the cold water. You're just running your line over to each independent fixture. If the fixtures are on the same wall, you can go ahead and run them down into the header as we showed previously. So you can see there's a drop here for both cold water and hot water, and there's also a drop here for cold water and hot water for the lab. And then lastly, we have a hot water here shown for the break room sink. So typically, all the cold and hot water lines are ran in the ceiling space. So you want to show that. That's where we're gonna usually run them. If you do need to run anything underground, you want to go ahead and show that. So you want to show it going down in the wall, and then whether or not you show a line coming here to the fixture, and then you just tag it. Make sure that you say that it's underground, so that we can make sure that they know exactly what it is that we're doing. So here on this job specifically, we did not need a recirc pump, but there might be jobs where you're going to need a recirc pump to put on your water heater. So the reason that we would install a recirc pump is if your hot water fixture, the furthest fixture is 50 feet away. If it's minimal of 50 feet away, you're going to need a recirc pump. Or if you're doing a 2015 IPC or newer job, you're going to go ahead and need to install that recirc pump anyways, per the jurisdiction requirements that they're going to need. So here we don't need it here, but if you do need to provide a recirc pump, you want to make sure that you show it in a loop. Here we're showing lines going to our independent fixtures, but if we were to have a pump here, we would run this in a loop. So I would just run it down here and then just kind of run a loop over and just connect this all the way coming back to the actual pump. Like I said, we don't need it in this job, so we don't have to worry about it. But that is something to keep in mind. Make sure that you need or if you do need the pump to show it on your stuff, and you're actually going to have to schedule that as well. Just determine that. So now you want to determine the maximum distance from your mains to the lab. So usually with the 2000, the reason that I mentioned that is because the 2015 IPC and newer asked you to be in the wall. So they want you to bring that hot water line down the wall and back up in the wall and back to your loop, just so that your minimum fixture length from your lav to your hot water main is not further than what they're asking you to make it. You know, and just with the hot water loop and everything like that. So we're gonna go ahead and show that, and that's what you would need for all of our hot and cold water distribution lines. When you want to do your water wall line sizing, you want to go ahead and work your way back from the furthest fixture. It's a lot easier when we start with our hot water line, but we don't make sure that we do that with our main lines, and then we're going to come back and do our individual lines later. So what we need to do is we need to figure out how many fixtures are in each how many fixture units are in each fixture. So if I go into here, you can see that my sink is going to need 3 fixture units. Actually, it's 2 fixture units. Fix that real quick for you guys. 2 fixture units. So my sink is going to need 2 fixture units. So I need that. 2. I go down to my pipe sizing chart. I know that it's a tank fixture, so can't do with the 1/2 inch. So I need to do with the 3/4 inch. So I need a 3/4 inch size. So since we don't want to just go back and forth on this, I'm just going to go ahead and copy this and bring it in to our job and just scale it up so that we can have it and just kind of look back and forth, go back and forth. I already know how many fixture units each one of these fixtures need, but if you need to go back and forth, just kind of look, that's fine. Just go ahead and do it. But just to save a little bit of time, I'm going to go ahead and just size these for you guys. So we want to start with the main. So you want to start off with the hot water. So you want to do text line, and we know that we're going to need a 3/4 inch hot water line. I want to make sure that this is on a notes layer. So 3/4 inch hot water line. You can put it right next to your line. If you want to show any type of leaders, you can. I like to show leaders. You don't have to. It just depends on what you want to do. So now we're working our way backwards. So since it's the furthest fixture, so we know there's 2 fixtures. We're going back, and now we have 2 labs. So we have 4 fixtures. So it's 2 fixtures for each lab. So 2, 4. And then we already had 2. So now we have 6 fixtures for this. So now I go back to my schedule and I go my tank. I know that 3/4 is not big enough anymore, so I'm going to need to upsize that to a 1 inch line. So I want to go and copy this. After my drop right there, I want to go ahead and change this line size to a 1 inch hot water line. Then go back, so there's no other fixtures on here except for the mop sink, but that one's going to be shown in the actual keynotes as well. So I have 2 lines here. I want to go ahead and go back here on this one. Just want to copy this one over. For us to see. So we know here we have 2 labs, so we have 2 4 fixture units. So I'll go back to my sizing. And we know that 3/4 inch is going to be perfectly fine for that. So now I size my line, 3/4 inch. I like to use leaders. You don't have to, but you can if you want to. All right. So those are my main hot water lines. So once I know that, now I go jump into the cold water. So I want to do the same thing that I did with the hot water line. So if I copy this over, put this in my furthest fixture, just kind of make sure. So I know it's the hose bib. So if I go back to my water calc, I can see here that my hose bib is going to use 2.5 fixture units. So go back here. I know it's 2.5 fixtures. I'm going to use a 3/4 inch line. Inch line, and then go ahead and do the same thing that you did with the hot water. So now I'm going to just jump back here, so I know that I'm adding 2.5, and then I'll add 2 fixture units for this sink right here, and I'm going to add 1 fixture units for each one of these refrigerators, because they're going to need a specific water to them. I know that they need that. So what I do is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.5. So I'm gonna go jump back here. 6.5. I know that I'm gonna need to upsize that to 1-inch cold water. See what I did here? 1 inch, and I'm gonna put CW. Make sure you fix that. Because now here I'm showing hot water on a cold water line. There you go. And then you work your way all the way back. Save a little bit of time. Just gonna go ahead and add everything back to how it needs to be. So if I go in here, I know for a fact that we have, per our fixture schedule, we have 69 fixtures here. So I'm gonna go here, and I know that 50% or more of the actual fixtures are valves. So I'm gonna go ahead and size this per my valve. So it's 74 fixture units, excuse me. It's gonna be a 2-inch fixture, 2-inch water line. So I wanna go back, size my main water line. It's going to be a 2-inch cold water line, and like that. And you want to go ahead and show any lines like that throughout the job. So once you do the main lines, like I just showed you, you want to go ahead and do independent lines. So once you do independent lines, for example, this is a hose bib, just like we did down there. You want to just go ahead and grab it and just show it for each line. So you're going to go ahead and do that for every single one of these. So when I'm coming into here, I know that I have a group of fixtures here that are going to all be flush valve. So when I'm sizing, so for example, when I size this hose bib, I know that this is it's a tank. So I size this per my tank column, which would be here. If I jump in here, I can see that I didn't even bring my fixture valve. So I bring that in here on the side. I can actually show you here, it'd be a lot better. So I can show here. So I have 2.5 fixture units, but they're tank fixtures, so I can know it's a 3/4 inch, right? But if I'm working with valve fixtures, I'm going to make sure to use this one. So even though 3/4 inch might do, so in a 1-inch line can do 13 fixtures in a tank, it can't do any fixtures with valve fixture units. So we want to make sure that we use the correct column. So here we know that we're going to need a 2-inch line for anything that's over 10 fixture units. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to count my fixtures on this line. So I know that I have each one of these as 10 fixtures, so 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50 with the urinal. So I know I'm going to have 50 fixture units coming down this wall. So I'm going to need a 2-inch cold water line for this specific one. Size it. There you go. So once you size every independent line, you want to go through and size every single one of them. A lot of the sizing that we do, it actually comes through keynotes. So here I already have keynotes filled out for us. And we can see that here we show, for example, a 2-inch line coming into the building. We show a 3/4 inch line hose going down to the hose bib. And here is the line, this is the specific line that I want to talk about. This one that goes down to this group of water closets. And I already wrote that down here. So here we show it on keynote 6. So it says 2-inch cold water line down through wall to header, route 1/2-inch cold water line to electric water cooler, route 1.5-inch cold water line to each urinal, route 1.5-inch cold water line to each water closet. So most of our sizing is going to go down inside of the keynotes. So you want to just make sure to note that. Make sure that your keynotes are correct. Make sure that they're lining up. You want to go ahead and bring those keynotes and then identify them on each one of these drops. So that's water sizing for you and water line routing for you guys. All right, guys. Well, that was domestic water piping plan design for you guys. So if you want to just go back, look at any one of these steps, feel free to just go back, just take a look. These videos are here for you guys to just learn and know exactly what it is that we want to show on the plans. So just keep in mind that every job is different in itself. So if it doesn't look exactly like what I showed you today, that's completely fine. It doesn't have to look exactly what we showed, but you do want to keep, for example, all of our symbols, anything like that we're showing that are ASEI specific. You want to go ahead and show that on your job. Like I said, right now, these jobs, every single job is different. So they are going to look different. But one of the recommendations that I have for you guys is just to keep your jobs as clean as possible. To show as much keynotes as you can. Just don't show as much tags. Just keep them as clean as possible. This helps when your engineer is reviewing your job. It's easier for him to see what it is that you're trying to do, and it also helps when we submit the jobs to the city. The reviewer gives you less comments because he knows exactly what it is that you're trying to do. So that's just a recommendation. Keep it as clean as possible. You also want to make sure that you have all the information that you need. So for example, we talked about water heater pumps that we installed for this specific job. You want to make sure that you have that information beforehand. Talk to your architect, research. If there's any other items or cut sheets that you might need, make sure that you have those. If you need civil drawings, make sure you have those. Just so that it makes it easier for you to just have all that information, so you can go ahead and go through your water distribution. You don't have to redo any of your work. Thank you guys for watching the video. See you next time. Thanks.